Every Saturday we follow, we cheer the boys in blue, the most successful team in football. We're Scotland's gallant few.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gers TV. This is a new feature we're doing. We're going to be interviewing various Rangers supporters. It's a great privilege to have a friend of mine, Rangers supporter, historian and author, Jeff Holmes. Welcome along to the Gers TV live show.
Good to see you, Si. Yes, delighted to be here.
Before we start, Jeff, you walked in and you done a wee thing with the Moses McNeil bust.
Yes.
Where did the cap come from?
Well, it's this man's here, the great Davy Meiklejohn, arguably Rangers' greatest ever player.
Certainly Rangers' greatest ever captain, I would say.
So, that's one of his caps. He got that in 1928, playing against England and playing against Ireland, so it was one cap a season then.
I was going to say that, there wasn't so many.
So he played a couple of games and somebody I researched for 2 years, so I read every match report, every comment piece on him, and I came to the conclusion that he has to be one of Rangers' greatest ever players. I know we've been going 150 years, Si, but it's you know, it was a John Gregg. It was a John Gregg vote in 1999 that led me to do something like that. You know?
I mean, the argument my dad had at the time was, how could somebody vote for Moses McNeil? They never saw him, so you couldn't really pick a greatest ever Ranger. However, I think John Gregg was certainly a great candidate for it. But Davy Meiklejohn and Willie Woodburn would be up there as well, probably.
Great players. I mean, that's why I called it the greatest Ranger ever, question mark.
Yeah.
The case for the original Ibrox legend. So he was certainly one of my favourites because he got a connection with Mary Hill and he played for Mary Hill and they signed for Rangers after a season, and Rangers gave Mary Hill a corrugated iron fence that was still up at Lochburn about 10 years ago, so that was the transfer fee.
It's fantastic, and that's one of the many books that you promoted. Before we start talking about your books and your career as an author, I just want to go back to the original story, how it all started with you. You're a Rangers supporter from birth.
Don't know about that side, but I mean, certainly from the age of about 9. I mean, I was born and brought up in Mary Hill. My dad and my two brothers, Stephen and Mark, are both Partick Thistle fans.
Right, I
my dad's no longer with us. So a lot of people follow their family into supporting a team. My dad was originally from Greenock, and his dad, who was from Yorkshire, was in the army and left Greenock with his wife, my grandmother, and moved to Maryhill to become a policeman, and was one of the original inaugurators of the Glasgow Male Voice Police Choir. So I didn't inherit his voice. Always come in after a match on a Saturday horse. My wife about that was at the referee again. But he was in the Male Voice Choir, and he got a house and moved to Kirtland Street in Maryhill, just near Queen's Cross, which we know is a home of Partick Thistle for Hill. And so I lived across the road from Partick Thistle I was born. So I was getting to my older brother's 3 years older than me, so he was a Partick Thistle fan. He still is, still season ticket holder, even though he lives in Blackpool. And I would get across with some of my pals when I was 7 or 8 years old, and you'd get in. I was talking to Gary McSweggan about this recently, because Gary's from that area, and Gary says he used to skip into Firhill as well. There was a plank that went for the canal bank to the back wall, and the security man turned a blind eye, and we used to get in that way, and we'd sort of run about there. And one of my first games was the League Cup final when Thistle beat Celtic 4-1. I was made to go to that one instead of going to Rangers v Motherwell. So the reason I became a Rangers fan was not through family or anything, but I met a pal of mine, Tosh Alexander, on Maryhill Road one night. It was Friday night, and I said to him, "You going to football tomorrow?" And he says, "Aye." I says, "So am I. We'll meet you at Queen's Cross." And he went, "What are you meeting me there for?" I says, "We're going to Firhill." And he went, "No, I'm going to Ayr." I says, "What are you going to Ayr for?" And he says, "Rangers are playing at Ayr." And him and his brother John had these hand-knitted jumpers, red, white and blue, and you always seen them. You seen their jumpers coming down the road before you realised who it was. And so he said he was going to Ayr United, and I'd moved up to Chapel Street in Maryhill near the barracks, and it was a John Gregg Loyal bus, and it left from outside the Viking pub where McDonald's is now in Maryhill Road.
Right, yeah.
And so I said to my mum, "Can I go to Ayr tomorrow?" And she says, "What do you want to go to Ayr for?" I says, "I'm going to go to the Rangers match." And she went, "Aye." So we went. She gave me money to go in the bus, and I always remember it's what a redneck. She walked me around to the bus to make sure I got on it okay, and I was fine. So we got in the bus, and I said to Tosh, I says, "What is this going to be?" And he went, "I've only been to 2 games." He went, "It's absolutely brilliant." He went, "It's packed. Rangers games are packed. No like Partick Thistle." So about 2 or 3 years ago, I was in. My wife and I met her cousin. Her cousin's Australia now, and she came over, and her and her pal, and the 4 years, Big Les, her pal's a guy, and Les says to me, we started talking away, and he says, "How long have you been a Rangers fan?" "You always been a Rangers fan?" I says, "Aye." I says, "The first game I went to," he went, "John Greg Loyal, 1970. He went, "You won the sweep, didn't you?" I says, "Aye." He went, he says, "Some of the boys were saying that wee shut up my back's won the sweep." He says, "You get £1, that's right." And we were all wanting it for drink money, because he's a few years older than me. I don't know how he remembered that side.
That's amazing, isn't it?
I won the sweep, I got £1. The deal was with Tosh that we went into the chippy, which is no longer there now. We got a 10 bob note each, and we were absolute kings.
What was the sweep days? Was that the first goal scorer?
It was the first goal scorer, and I got it was the, I don't know if it was the names or the minutes or whatever, but it was a couple of pennies for a shot. You know, it was 19. I think it was 1970. It was probably the 1970-71 season. So it was rough. It was probably August or September 1970. Yeah. And I must admit, from then on, it was just Rangers all the way. We used to when we went to Ibrox, started going to the home games. My mum would give me money. I only had enough money for the bus fare over to Ibrox, and then a programme, a bus fare over and the money in if we couldn't get lifted in. And we used to walk over from Maryhill to Ibrox so we could buy a programme. I've still got the programmes to this day.
Still collecting them?
Aye, still collecting them. So it was, I never ever looked, I just became absolutely
you got the bug early?
Besotted with Rangers. I mean, we'd go on holiday. We used to go, people used to go on holiday in Scotland in those days. Aye. I would at 11 and 12, 13 years old, I would hitchhike back down the road if there was a Terence Caledonian Cup game on. Honestly, I've never missed a game in my life.
And in the later years, you became a bus convener and started taking guys to the games.
That's right. It was I started going in. Then moved up to a housing scheme called Cadder. Codder to some people.
That's what it's Codder.
Codder. A lot of people call it Codder. My wife calls it Cadder, and I get a row. And lived up there for I was about 11, 12, and started going in the Sandbank bus for the Sandbank Orange Halls. And
which is still running.
Which is still running. There's been a couple of different, quite a few people ran it since then. The bus stopped, and then there was a bus called. When Graham Souness came to, the bus was struggling for years, and we went through a few terrible times when I was helping out in the convener's job, and it got that bad. We used to use a bus firm called Bruce's of Airdrie. Right. And John Bruce was the owner of Good Blue Nose. And Jimmy Bell was one of his drivers. Right, so Jimmy would take us over to Ibrox and that. So we got to know Jimmy really well. And he was fantastic. He was dead open and a good laugh and all that. And we'd have and one of the things he would do is we would be going to Easter Road or whatever, and we'd stop in the motorway. We're like, "Jimmy, I need the toilet," because we're all bevying in the back.
Need toilets in the bus?
No, and we'd get off, and you'd all be standing against the bus. He would drive away, leaving you, and our tennies all standing there, But when Rangers were really good, when Jock Wallace come back and we were struggling and the crowds were poor, we couldn't fill a bus.
This is the kind of days of Chesterfield.
That's right, that's exactly, but it was probably 1983, that one. And we were struggling, and the bus was going to fold. The bus had been gone for 20 years or something, and the bus was going to fold. So John Bruce says, "Look, there's a bus in a similar situation for Holytown and Chapel Hall." So we joined up with them, and we started going to the games with them, and depending where we were, they would drop us off first or we would drop them off first. And one of the times it was a beautiful relationship gone bad, and they all started singing derogatory songs about a fictional woman called Mary Hill on the way back, so we started a big punch up in the bus, so we fell out with them. So that was us back to, then thankfully Graham Souness came, and people all started going back to the games, and call them glory hunters, call them what you will, but thousands started going back. So we were fine again, and we were oversubscribed, and tickets were a problem again. Before it wasn't a problem. And then another bus started up in Maryhill called the Graham Souness Loyal. Right. And it was Stuart Watson and Mark Thompson that ran it, one of the boys I'm still in touch with, Mark. And that left the Lock 29, I think it was in just Annisland, just there.
Is it no Lock 28?
Lock 20, is it? I can never remember the number.
I go scooter runs to it, I think it's
Somebody will phone in.
Probably nearly two of them.
So that was good, you know, we were really starting to get it back again, but then I left and I moved over to the south side and I was going back over, but then you kind of just start, you're near Ibrox then, so the bus folded for a while, and Graham Souness-Loyal moved into the club in Sandbank Street, and then the boys started the bus up again. I think the Souness maybe went by the wayside as well. But there's always been a bus there, and it's a great club. I don't know if you've ever been up there.
I've been in it, a lot of times.
There's a great pool room and great.
It's a good location and all, because it's just a wee bit out of the way.
That's right, and that was our club, and then I started running a Rangers supporters team on a Sunday, and we entered the Scottish Supporters Football League.
This is when the days of the games on a Saturday.
That's right. So we played on a Sunday, and it was roughly about 1986 I started it, and it was going up until recently. Other boys had taken over, and we had a very successful team, you know, and we wore the Rangers strips, and we were always covered in the Rangers news until Terry McGeady took over as editor. Do you remember the dark days? And I remember Terry saying, getting a letter from him. That's one of the days when you get a letter from people in the studio. And he says, just to let you know,
this is a summons letter.
Oh, that's what it was like. Just to let you know, we'll be stopping your coverage in the Rangers news. I've taken over as editor, and quite frankly, who apart from your grandmothers actually cares about seeing Sandbank Rangers in the Rangers news? So we got that, right? We got there, it was a kind of niche thing, and you know, there was a few people embraced it and all the rest of it, and we loved it obviously. Stephen Halliday was the editor then, but when he took over, I didn't like the way he did it. I thought there was a nicer way to do it. So I wrote to Rangers, and John Gregg was PR man at the time, and he got us over, me and one of the other boys, for a meeting, and he said, "What's wrong, boys?" Because he valued supporters, you know, he was doing his job, and that was it. And he summoned Terry McGeady in and gave him a roll, and for the way he spoke to us, absolutely gave him a roll. And then he made him organise a photo for the team on the park, you know, the benches and all the strips and all that.
Brilliant.
And
so it worked out well.
So it was really good. We knew it had to come to an end sometime, but so that's kind of my history growing up as a Rangers fan. So
that's you growing up as a Rangers fan, Jeff, but there's a big difference between a fan having your opinions, your views, and having knowledge, and actually be able to put pen to paper. When did you realise you had a talent to write books?
Oh, it's a way back to the days when I was 8 or 9 years old, and I would walk about Maryhill with a notepad and pen writing down the numbers of the car registrations. I'd have been a great asset for the Polos. But and then I started writing I was into programmes, as I said, so I started writing wee programme reviews and wee match reports and stuff like that. I started doing that, and my dad encouraged me. He always said, but then I went to school and other things got in the way, and I just forgot all about it. And then the first book I did was Jock Wallace. I did bits and pieces. I'd moved to Postle Park, and I did a programme for Perthshire Juniors, and my fee for that was free drink in the Brothers Bar. You know, that was good, and I enjoyed that. Then I did a programme for Maryhill Juniors, and started doing a fanzine called I Ready. Roughly about 89.
I didn't know that was you done it.
And what we did was, most of the money we made went to the Sandbank Rangers football team, and we bought nice strips.
That ran for about 2 seasons.
It did 2 or 3 years, and we had a lot of, we did okay, you know, we had a laugh with it, and we did all that. It was a bit after Mark had brought out Follow.
I think it was the third Rangers fanzine. I think there was one before Follow.
There was only ran for 1 or 2 issues, didn't it, I think?
Because there was
World Shut Your Mouth.
World Shut Your Mouth was a European one made in Switzerland, I think.
Is that right?
I think so, but it was a European Ranger supporters one.
I didn't know that.
There was a fanzine called True Blue, I think. There was one called Teddy Bear.
I think they were after us.
But these were only 2 and 3. But I Ready was like there was Follow and I Ready, and then number 1 later on kind of replaced I Ready.
I think we did about 30 issues. You see them on eBay from time to time, and it's quite funny. So that went quite well, and I always remember we were over at Hampden for a cup semi-final. It's during the week, and we're all standing selling the fanzines before we went into the game, and my young brother's standing with a bundle, and somebody ran by and grabbed the bundle off him, right? So he went to chase him, because my brother's not shrinking violent. He went to chase him, and when he went to chase him, somebody knocked the box out of his foot. So we were doing a few quid that night, but it was good because it used to pay for the away trips. Because we were in the Scottish Supporters League, we went to Dundee, Edinburgh, all the other places to play all these teams on a Sunday morning. So it helped for minibuses, and it helped for, as I say, strips, match balls and all that. So it was good. So it financed that quite a bit. So the fanzine was quite good. Again, that was a stepping stone to doing other things.
Well, that was at the time. It was like the punk thing was like the fanzine, and I don't ever think Rangers really liked any of them.
No, I don't
Any of
think
the
he
football
did.
teams probably,
No, I don't think
most of
he
the
did.
clubs didn't like them.
I might be wrong, but I'm sure there was Mark would probably know, but I think there was a couple of times when Rangers actually tried to put the kibosh on you selling them at the stadium.
Aye, there was a 50-yard ban or something in it.
That's right, and they gave you, they got
150
the
yard ban.
stewards to move you or something, which I thought was a bit petty. But
I think the reason for that was some of the fanzines were at one point maybe selling as many as the programmes.
Probably.
And I think that was a kind of rivalry.
Follow was always the big one. I know it lasted for... Is it still going? Follow.
No, but I think it
lasted for...
I think it could be something like a 500 edition. That Big Mark's always... He spoke about doing another one where he's sold he's like 20 editions away from doing a golden number.
Is that right?
Aye. I mean, there is a few teams in England that brought back the fanzines as well, and a few didn't stop. But in general, it's all digital.
Bradford City never stopped. They're still doing the City Gent because I go down there a couple of times a season.
Aye.
But so the books kind of evolved out of that. I was starting to cover. I was covering matches for the Sun on a Saturday, and I would go down to Berwick. I used to get sent down to Berwick, Stranraer, Montrose, all these places, and a journalist called Fraser Elder that used to was quite well known at the time. And Fraser says to me, he says, "What are you doing?" I says, "Oh, we're looking at Jock Wallace's career." I says, "I think I might do a book, but your first one's always quite hard because it seems, as if it's out of reach somehow for just a boy from Maryhill or something, You feel as if you don't belong in that company. It's a strange thing. And he encouraged me, he says, go for it. So I was working in the Daily Record at the time, and I started researching all this stuff, and I thought to myself, I need to do this right. So I interviewed about 25 players that played under Jock, which was great. And the best bit came when I got a phone call. I was working at the Record, so I was down at Central Quay, and I got a phone call one day from a mate of mine, Bobby Roddy.
I know Bobby from Fife.
Bobby's from Glasgow. He's Brickton boy originally.
I know Bobby. That's what he said in Fife now.
No,
I met him at dinner no long ago.
And he says, get yourself there to the Hilton. I says, I'm working. He went, tell your gaffer you've got toothache or something. So I did, and I went there, and the Barcelona Bears were all there signing merchandise. So they were all there apart from, I think it was Colin Steen, and there was 9 of them there. And it was Colin Jackson, the late Colin Jackson's Pam that was organised.
He was a players' liaison at the time for all the ex-players.
That's right, for the former Rangers Players Benevolent. And I decided that the Jock Wallace book, I was going to give half the profits to the former Rangers Players Benevolent Fund.
Which went, just for anybody, sorry for interrupting you, but
no problem.
It went to players who needed the money. It didn't go to players that were on the soonest wages.
I think that's right, because the cut-off was 1986.
Because of that.
And any players that were earning the big wages, they didn't get it. It was all your guys before that.
Absolutely, so, it's for a needy cause.
Definitely if they needed an operation or something or whatever. Aye. So Bobby's standing there with Pam, and he says, the guys are in there. He says, John Gregg, a lot of me. He says, and by the way, I phoned Greggy last night because I know sometimes he's no keen in talking to people. So I says, right, okay, that'd be great. So Pam says, who do you want first? And I'm like that. This is the guys I grew up watching. This is my idols, my absolute idols. But I'm here to do a professional job. So Tommy McLean came out first, and then Alfie Conn came out, and then Willie Matheson, Peter McCloy, Sandy Jardine. It wasn't long before Sandy's illness. And one by one they just came out, and Ali McDonald, and I was just like, I really struggled to interview them because they were my heroes. So that was fine. So she came out and she says, is that you, Jeff? You happy? You got them all? And I says, no, I've still got one to get. And she went, John Gregg. I says, how'd you guess? He's still in there. So and Bobby says, Pam, I spoke to him last night and I phoned him. So next minute Greggy comes out and just walks towards the lift. So Bobby shouts, Greggy! This is Jeff, I told you. I can't remember anything about Jock Wallace. It was that long ago. And I thought, this is my chance to get John. I need to get John Gregg, right? So I've got my wee dictaphone ready, and I'm like, I says, John, listen, if you don't want to do the interview, that's fine. Absolutely fine. I says, but just one question I want to ask you, if that's okay. So he started walking over, and he went, what is it? And I wouldn't say he was hostile, but he wasn't massively friendly at that point, because I think he just wanted to leave, right? It'd been a long day for them as well.
He was never a media type guy.
No.
Still to this day.
That's right. So I says to him, I read somewhere that after we won the treble in 78, would it be? 76? 77. I've got terrible memories. I honestly, for somebody that likes Rangers history, I've got a terrible memory. I says, I read that after when we clinched the treble by winning the Scottish Cup at Hampden, I says, John Gregg walked into the dressing room and threw the cup at you and went, there you go, there's your cup. Is that you happy now? And he went, And he laughed and he went, aye, and he dropped it, didn't he? Being an ex-keeper, he dropped it, and that's why there's a dent in the Scottish Cup, and I'm like that. So he kind of smirked, right? And I says to him, so did you, I mean, listen, it's not a hatchet job. I says, it's not a tabloid job. I says, but did you not get on together? He went, no, it wasn't that. He says, it was a bit of banter, he says, and a bit of this and a bit of that. He says, and I was a serious player, you know, because you're captain in Rangers Football Club.
Aye.
He went, you've got a job to do. He went, you need to be a winner. And I says to him, so did he travel through it? And blah, blah. And he started talking away. And before I knew it, I had my dictaphone on in this.
He's doing everything you asked him.
15 minutes. I had all my questions in my head. 15 minutes. Then he turned around and he went, he says, anyway, as I said, I can't remember. I says, that's fine, John. He went, he looked at the dictaphone and he went, did you just interview me? And I says, aye. And he went, well done, big man, and he walked away. So it was, I got what I wanted, but apart from it being a really emotional day for me, so I was meeting all my heroes, it was fantastic. And
well, that's sort of material you probably need for a book with that.
well, it really helped, because I went and interviewed players that had played under him when he managed Motherwell, when he managed Colchester, and when he was in Seville. Got players for that as well. I got people that had worked with him as chief executive. I got Leicester. I got a few boys for Leicester. I got the guy Alan Smith that had been the striker with Gary Lineker. And a boy that he'd signed for Motherwell. I can't remember the boy's name. He was a young boy when he signed him, and he played under him from 3 or 4 years. And I tracked him down to my daughter tracked him down to a sports centre in Airdrie, and I went through there and they agreed to be. So it was people.
It's a lot of work as well. Then it was.
And then, do you know what really bothered me about that? And I don't mind saying it, because at that time David Leggett was doing a book on as well, and Jock Wallace as well, which I didn't know. I genuinely didn't know. And my young brother worked in the Renfrew Ferry at the time, was manager on the Renfrew Ferry, and an old journalist called Alec Gordon was doing a book on Chick Charnley, and they would meet in there once a week, once a month, whatever. So Mark got to know them, and so Mark met Alec Gordon one night in the pub, just in the off chance, just in the pub in Glasgow, and he knew I was doing the book on Jock Wallace. So Mark says to him, "Do you have a book on Jock Wallace called what was my book called on Jock Wallace?"
I can't mind. There's two.
Blue Thunder. Told you.
Bring the books. I said bring the books.
and he says, and Alec Gordon apparently says to him, a cut and paste job, never interviewed them, they never did this, never did that. And that really pissed me off, because that book took me a long time to write. It took a lot of effort travelling all over the place trying to get to speak to people. And Mark says, well, by the way, you know something? He says, you're telling lies. He went, that's my brother that wrote that. And he went, that stuff. And that's probably what's going on out there. And author wars, you know, but you're like screen wars. And you don't want that. You just want to, you want to do your book and just bring it out and
just enjoy it.
Trying to get Rangers to publicise that was an absolute nightmare.
Can imagine? Aye.
At the very end, I was about a week for going to the publisher with that, and a journalist I know said to me, "Is Jock Wallace's family involved?" I says, "No." I said, "I don't know Jock family." He says, "Well, I know they're on Spain now. His widow and his son and his wife and
Daphne and
young John Wallace. That's right. And he's got a daughter as well that lives in England." And I says, "No." He went, you want me to get in touch with him?" I says, "That'd be great, because that's it. You want the stamp of approval." Aye. So that was fine. So he gets in touch with him, and next minute I get a text for young John Wallace, and he says, "I'm really really pleased to hear you're writing a book about my dad." He says, "I think it's maybe something that's been missing, because he was such a big personality, a big career." So we had it off right away. Good. And next minute he sent me all these family photographs, Jock in the army and all that. So it was like, and then Daphne got in touch with me and she says, "It's nice to hear you're writing a book about John," as she called him, you know. So that was the kind of finale for me, and that was it. So I went to the publisher, got in touch with Rangers, usual, never get back to you, got in touch with Rangers, says, "Look, half the profits going to the former Players Benevolent Fund." Never get back to me. Colin Stewart, who works at Rangers, that manages the former Players Benevolent Fund, got in touch with Colin and went up and seen Colin. That was the first I met Colin, a lovely guy, helped me everything he could, put me in touch with Colin Jackson. He then said they will arrange players to come to the signings and stuff. So, it was really,
so that kicks it off you.
Oh, I'm sitting in Waterstones in the tune with Tom Forsyth and Colin Jackson. Aye. And we're supposed to be doing it for 12 to 2. And for 12 to 1, there's not one person come through the door. Saturday afternoon, summer, and I'm like, this is strange. Not one person. And Tom Forsyth says, you should have got better players. You know, you should have got better. And Colin, just listening to the two of them, both sadly no longer with us. Listening to two of these guys talking was just an education for me as well, and they loved Rangers, you know. Anyway, it turned out I'd get a time rang. It didn't start to 1, it was 1 to 3 instead of 12 to 2.
So people don't know it.
No, they didn't. So, and Tam Forsyth says, I think you just wanted to come and listen to your stories for an hour. You know, and I says, I'm really sorry about this, guys, but can you wait another? Oh, no problem. He phoned his daughter, picked me up in an hour. You know, it was just great. And then eventually I got in touch with Rangers again. I went into the Rangers shop and I says, is the manager in? You know, and he says, the lassie says, no, it's a guy called Stephen. I can't remember his second name. She says he's based in Argyll House. I says, right, fair enough. And I'm quite
straight point,
so I went round and I says to the lassie at reception in Argyll House, I need to speak to Stephen, your man for the shop. You got an appointment? I says, aye. What's your name? I says, Jeff Holmes. Okay, right. So he says, I don't think I've got this guy in my diary. I says, no, he must have forgot to put it in. So he comes in. I says, how you doing, Stephen? Jeff? And he went, did we have a meeting scheduled? I says, don't tell me you forgot. And he went, I'm really sorry. And he says, what can I do for you? So he felt as if he owed me, you know.
He was obliged to.
I says, I want to have a book signing. I've told him about the Jock Wallace book. I says, half the profits going to the former players. I want to have a book signing in the shop. And we were in League One at the time, we'd been doing the leagues. And he says, no, it's not possible. He says, we don't do book signings in the shop. I says, well, I would like you. It's the first time for everything. Anyway, he says, right, okay, we got it for the United game. It's a Tuesday night, and I was sitting there with half the Barcelona team signing books. The queue was round the corner. He went, I don't think it'll work, but the queue, I'm not saying I was proved right and he was wrong, but the queue was round the corner, you know. I says, many books, if you take 50 books, I says, that'll not be enough. Eventually got him to take 100 and he sold it. You know. And then we played Stranraer at home on the weekend and he didn't have any for that, and then that was the end of the season, so they kind of messed up a wee bit, but still get in and
you know, got to do what you wanted to do.
I mean, I says that the publisher was there. I always remember publisher, Lassie Jane for Down South Pitch Publishing, and their logo is a pitch, a green pitch, with the 18-yard line. So she gets the box stuff out and she puts it up, and this lassie that worked in the shop says, you can't pick that up. She went, how no? She went, green. And I says, it's a football pitch here, and I says, away you go. All right, sorry. So, but she said, look to the manager of the shop, I've got books in the car, I'll give you them. He went, no, he says, it's got to go through Sports Direct and all that, and I'm like that. You know, but at least it was an achievement.
You got what you wanted to achieve with it, and you got the book out to the public. So, I mean, a couple of things on that. When you're saying that kind of Rangers didn't back it at first, I felt as if, in my own opinion, I think Joe Wallace was a massive influence on my life as a young boy, because it was when I started following Rangers, it was the end of the John Gregg management era, and Jock came back, and I always loved the guy, but I felt he was really badly treated by the club when he came back. If you remember the story with the Edmondson club, with Alistair Hood, they threw him out, and I think that the club let the Jock Wallace story and the family down a wee bit, so I think they should have supported the book more.
I think it was, that's right, he was put at the stadium, it was in the members' lounge, upstairs.
He wasn't a guest.
And he wasn't even going in, it was somebody that came to the door and says, oh Joy, and he went over to speak to them.
Right,
and I think he was still inside, and Hood, well, somebody, you know what like it is, a lot of people are troublemakers, and Hood came up and threw it, and it must have been the most humiliating, embarrassing thing. And then he paid into the next game, and he watched it for the enclosure.
Watched it, and they never ever told the story to the paper.
They never ever apologised, to my knowledge. So what happened was, a couple of years ago, when Jock was inaugurated in the Scottish Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
His widow, Daphne, came up, and his son, John, and young John, the grandson, who's a massive Rangers fan, and the three of them were invited to Hampden, which I thought was really nice.
Good.
And what happened was, that day they were invited to Ibrox for hospitality.
Good.
And I think they were spoken to at that point. But again, that was a new regime.
Aye.
You know, now when I got, as I say, I got to know the family through it, and Jock's son John messaged me and says, listen, he says, my son John's studying in Southampton, he's at university. He says he's desperate to come up for Rangers game in, and you can do it to help. I says, of course. So he put me in touch with the boy, and I says to the boy, so I spoke to John Gilligan, and I says, John, we've got Jock Wallace. He's got, John Gilligan was
John
fantastic.
John Stone.
Right up John Street.
Aye.
So he that's how I got to know John, and so John.
John's not on the board anymore, but he's still an ambassador, and he's involved in the new fan board as well, which is a good choice.
So he sorted it out. He went, listen, bring young John. He says, we'll get him into the director's box, we'll get him into hospitality. I says he wants to meet the players. He went, we'll get him to meet the players in the lounge after the game. I says, right, okay. So I phoned young John and I says, right, that's it, sorted. I says, John Gilligan, the director, sorted it for you. Get into the boardroom. But he went, in greatest respect, Jeff, I want to go in with the Union Bears. He's 18, right? I says, right, he went, I just really want to meet the players. I says, right, that's great, no bother. So Mark Warburton was in charge at the time, so we were playing Falkirk that day, and we won 1-0 with a free kick at the Coleman Road end late on to win the match. Andy Halliday was suspended because he did that at Capello, remember?
Aye.
So that was just to get an idea of the time. So I met John before the match. I'd got him and his pal tickets for the Broomloan Road front. So he goes in there and he enjoys the match, and then I'm standing at the front door. I says, "We'll get round sharpish after the game, 20 minutes. Last out, he didn't want to leave, just soaking up the atmosphere. Rangers daft." So he comes round. John Gilligan's waiting for us. No, doesn't he send somebody else? John Gilligan's there.
Aye.
He says, "John, it's a privilege to meet you. Jock Wallace's grandson." He says, "Your grandfather was a wonderful man." So young John felt important and stuff, which was great. So we went upstairs, and it was right. So it was Rangers Falkirk that day. So the first person we seen pop in his head at the Blue Room was Alex Totten, who I'd done a book about as well.
Totten was the assistant manager.
He was assistant manager. So. And so Alex shouted, "Jeff, how you doing?" And I says, "You'll never guess who this is, Alex." And he went, "This is Jock Wallace's grandson." Alex started, tears were coming down him. So, and he met Mark Haley, Richard Gough, and then Dave King was walking along the corridor, and John Gilligan says, "Dave, I've got a boy here." And he went, "Oh, another photograph," and he kind of smiled. He went, "No," he says, "You'll want your photograph with him." He went, "This is Jock Wallace's grandson," and Dave King, emotion. Dave didn't show emotion an awful lot. So that was fine. Then we went along, took him into the trophy room, and he asked me to take a photo in the exact same spot where his dad had taken a photo of him when he was 8.
Oh, right? Brilliant, aye.
So it was really nice. And then bought strips and all that. So we goes along to the players' lounge, and we're waiting there for the players. And the first one, it was Barry Mackay sitting with his family, and his kind of face looked as if it's tripping him, and didn't he? Eventually his photo taken, but it wasn't a memorable experience, you know. And then Danny Wilson, exact same, and I thought, this is going pear-shaped for the boy, he must be. But he was actually too hyper to notice this.
You're overthinking it maybe as well.
Probably. So next minute, Andy Halliday comes in with his jacket and that one. Lovely boy. Couldn't have been any nicer. Tavernier came in, he was great. Dominic Ball, the big boy, was on loan to us. He was lovely as well. So he had a great day.
He got his experience.
So he said to me, he says, "Jeff, there's only one thing," he says, he says, "this is a perfect day for me." He went, "But there's only one thing," he says, "Can you arrange for me to speak to Mark Warburton?" He went, "I need to apologise to him," and I says, "Aye, okay." I says, "I'll see if I can, I've not got any clout." But so we goes downstairs, and next minute Davy Weir comes out from where the dressing room is. So I shouted on him, I says, "Davy," I says, "this is Jock Wallace's grandson." "Oh, pleased to meet you, son," and that photograph taken. I says, "He wants to speak to Mark Warburton." I says, "He wants to apologise to him," and I says, he went, "All right, what do you want to apologise to him for?" And the boy says, "I'd rather keep that between us, right?"
Aye.
So he goes in and gets Mark Warburton. He comes out, he went, "How you doing, son? Nice to meet you, John." He went, "This is Jock Wallace's grandson," and his face went like that, right? And he went, "I just want to apologise for my grandfather no playing you when you were at Leicester City."
Oh, I didn't know that.
Apparently there was a bit of friction between the two. Aye, Jock didn't rate him as a player, so that was funny. It was good, you know, that he got photos taken.
He got his experience.
Oh, he still talks about it.
Brilliant.
You know, that was 7 years ago and he still talks about
Fantastic, and he says Rangers daft. And just two more things on Jock Wallace for some of the younger viewers that might not know a lot about his career. When Jock was in the army, you mentioned the army stuff, he used to actually, there's a story that he would climb up the pylons to get the radio. I'm not stealing the story off your book.
No, not at all.
He would climb up hundreds of feet just to get the radio.
BBC World Service. Aye.
Which for anybody that's younger wonders what I mean, that's basically like sitting and hundreds of feet up in the air to wait for ages for somebody to tell you for 10 seconds to score and gone again.
That's right.
And it probably just about the score, not even the scorers.
And they would say, and today's score is Celtic 2, Rangers, and he'd lose, and he'd be like that. And he'd take it out the Koreans, you know,
when he got back
the North Koreans.
So that was one story. There's also, he was a goalkeeper when Berwick Rangers beat Rangers in the shock result.
Aye, and he was credited, if that's the right word, with clattering into Willie Johnson, breaking his leg.
Aye.
But Jock Wallace was a no prisoners man, as you know, and he was.
Gillian Sands,
I mean, I speak to Alfie Conn about that, and Alfie will say, because Alfie was from that neck of the woods,
right.
Second nature to him, because he would run up and playing in it. So but he says, Jock Wallace, he went, honestly, he says, an absolute, a real hard taskmaster, but the players loved him. Yeah. You know, and I seen, one day I seen that, Si, if I can just mention this, when I worked in Scottish television, when I started in there when I was 16, and I think I was about 17 at the time. And you know, you couldn't just jump on a plane and go abroad and watch your European opponents, or you couldn't go on the internet. So we used to hire the conference room out in STV in Kirkcaldy, and the players and the manager and the coaching team would all come in and watch videos in there.
Aye.
So one day the security man says to me, I had an autograph, I used to love getting autographs. The security man says to me, "Oh, you've been your element today, the Real Rangers team's coming in." I'm like, "Oh my God, brilliant." But I get sent out. So I missed them. So I comes back to the front door and I'm like, the security man, he went, "Oh, they're all in the conference room." Next minute a taxi screeches to a halt at the front door. Jock Wallace gets out, "Keep it change," and he throws his money in. And he's running in, and I've got a split second to make up my mind. Do I stop this raging bull and ask him for his autograph?
Aye.
Or do I just stand aside and let the whirlwind pass me? I don't know where I get the courage for, but he came in. I went, "Excuse me, Mr. Wallace." He puts the brakes on. And he says, "Yes, and what is it?" I says, "Can I get your autograph?" And he went, "Of course." And he stops. "What's your name?" "Jeff." To Jeff, Jock Wallace. And he walks away and then he stops and he went, "Did you get all the players as well?" And I says, "No, I missed them. I was sent down to Central Station to pick something up." "Come on." Took me in.
Aye.
Took me in. They were all sitting drinking tea and sitting chatting. They went, "Right." Somebody went, "Oh, come on, Gaffer, timekeeping." And he says, "This is Jeff." Remember my name for about 10 seconds ago. "This is Jeff." He went, "He wants your autograph. So before we watch a film of this team," he says, give me your autograph." And that was it. Every one of them signed it.
They did what told.
They were told.
So that got you into the, obviously your experience with Jock Wallace, but you're thinking there's another couple of books in you. You've done 20 odd books on Rangers?
I've written about 20 odd books altogether, but maybe about 13 or 14 on Rangers.
Yeah, so before I go into that, if you remember about 10, 15 years ago, there used to be debates on the Follow website, because it was a fact that up until in the last 10, 15 years, there wasn't many books on Rangers. It just wasn't a thing that was happening.
Right.
And then, out of the blue, from very few Rangers books in 20, 30 years, all these guys started writing books, and I think the fanzine era kind of, as you said, inspired it.
Aye.
The average guy realised that there's a wee bit more to it and they can get involved. So more and more books came out and they were good quality. So where did you go from that? You went from the Jock Wallace book to what?
What did I do next? It might have been the Marco Negri book, and I was in the Record at the time, and I was talking to Gary Ralston one day, and I says to him, I says, you know, boy did the Gallant Pioneers for him that doesn't know. So I says, "Gary," I says,
he's on the fan board as well, though.
Is he?
He's one of the guys on it.
Oh, that's good. He's a good lad, Gary. And I says to him, I was thinking of writing a book about Marco Negri, and you might have seen his face the way he looked at me.
Aye.
I didn't know he'd been doing one. He'd been working on it for about a year.
Right.
And he'd written all this stuff, and he'd been doing Zoom calls doing Zoom calls, and he'd been getting cut off a bit like Jock Wallace in the jungle. And but he hadn't gone anywhere for about 6 months. It had really stalled. So I think he came up to me the next day and he went, "Do you know what?" He went, "Batter in, big man." He says, "Just, you're going to go for it." And Marco Negri, as a character, interested me because he never ever spoke to MD when he was in Scotland, so we never really knew a lot about him. And there was all these, you know what happens?
Aye.
Stories grow arms and legs,
and become fact.
Become fact over time. So I got in touch with him, and the first thing he says to me was, he doesn't trust journalists, right? He went, "I'll do it on one condition, that you're not a journalist." And I says, "No, I'm not a journalist." So it was only when we actually started the book and we were halfway through it that I told him I was a journalist.
Aye.
And he went, and he started looking as if to say, "Oh, you're actually okay, you tell the truth." And I says, we're not all the same. So that was a really good book, and it was shortlisted for the best overseas autobiography at the Book Awards in London at Lord's. We've been get invited into Lord's Cricket Ground, and it was filmed by Sky Sports, and it was just a massive do. And we were unfortunate, we get beat by a cage fighter called Ronda Rousey, who I don't really know much about her, but we were in really good company. There was a lot of really top authors and books there that night, so that was good. So I really enjoyed that, and I've been at Pitch Publishing the whole time, and they've done all my books, and I think the next one after that was the Rangers Revolution 1986. I think that was the next one.
So that was on the soonest.
That was on the
Holmes era.
What I did was the first half of the book was on January, June,
yep.
And then the next half was when Soonest come in. You know, the second 6 months. So I interviewed a lot of people that were with Jock Wallace and Alec Totten for that half, and then the second half was
the ending era and the starting era.
That's what it was like. So it was a good thing to do. And then I did it was about, I think I had about 10, 12, maybe 12 interviews with ex-players and coaches and people like that. And then I did a book on the 1992-93 season, which obviously we all really enjoyed. And I did the same format. I interviewed Chris Wood's Terry Butcher. That was the first book, sorry. And then I interviewed a lot of people for the second book, the 1992-93 season, which was really, really good as well. And then I think it was Mark Walter's book, which was a really enjoyable one as well.
That's when I got to know you.
That's right. We did the thing at Ibrox with.
I blagged my way into the press conference.
That was brilliant.
And I done the press conference before the press.
That's right. I did in the press room.
I said to you, "Will we go for it?" And he went like, "The press will not be too happy. We'll go for it."
Go for it.
And Mark was brilliant that day.
He was magic, wasn't he?
That was a great story because that didn't just cover the Rangers side or the football side.
No.
It obviously covered the side of Scottish football, the racism and that. It was never really covered correctly before it.
I don't think so, and I mean, it led to him being on TV in a documentary, and there was a lot of radio stuff he did through it. And again, as I said to you, it can be a calling card. A book. He started doing PR work for, pundit work for Liverpool, and he did a few things for Rangers, and he did it for Liverpool and Aston Villa. So he's doing okay now, and it's good.
He's a good guy.
He's a great guy, and there was a lot of stuff. I mean, I remember the first time I met him. I went down to the Annan Rangers Supporters Club to meet him because he was coming up to be a
so
guest.
Kind of halfway.
So I know Eddie Watson and Lee Edgar that run it, so they invited me down. So I went down and I spoke to Mark for half an hour before it started, and he says to me, he says, I don't really think I've got enough interesting things in my life and career to tell you to handle a book. And I says, every day's get something.
There's a book in that double shuffle alone, man.
And then he said to me, I says, what were your early days? I says, blah blah blah. He went, the paedophile that was running the club. And I was like, what? And then he told me other things about his dad and about there's a podcast on the BBC, BBC iPlayer, about the Burger Bar Boys or something, the most notorious gang in Birmingham, absolute notorious, and they ran out his dad's fast food place. So there was all these things. And then once I'd says to him, I says, well, there's that and there's that. The way it was always put to me, Si, was if you're going to write a book, if you're going to write an autobiography with somebody, just imagine it's going to be serialised by a national paper and they're looking for at least 6 really good lines in it.
Aye.
So if you've not got that, then
you've not
got the ingredients. So that's what I was thinking there. I spoke to a few people. I spoke to a lot of people, ex-players over time, and a lot of them haven't wanted to do it. Brian Laudrup doesn't want to do one because he doesn't want to badmouth MD and doesn't want to.
Which is fair enough. But the great thing with the Mark Walters one, as I said, it took the story that as you see, if you tell a story so many times and it's a lie, and Rangers not having any PR, I've not made any secret of this when I do my shows. Rangers have almost completely had no PR in the last 30 years, and Rangers allowed the story that Mark Walters was abused and racially abused by football fans who wouldn't tell you who it was, and it was alluded that it was Rangers fans, and you brought the book out telling the real story.
Mm-hmm.
and that's to me that's what's important when you bring out a book and it makes a difference in people's life. Mm-hmm. Because at that time there was documentaries, you said, but they weren't telling the full story.
That's right. And when after the book, about 2 years after the book, a documentary came out, and they asked Mark to do it, got in touch with me for a bit of research, and Mark told the story, and they actually put the whole story out, which was great. And there was an ex-Rangers player never came out too well on that with racism as well, which I'll no name, but so there was a lot. We had a debate over whether we should do that or not. Was it going to serve any purpose? And we decided to do it.
No, fair play to you. And just before we finish that, obviously he had a lot of trials and times in his life, in his career. And I thought he was called Mark Everton Walters because his family supported Everton.
And he ends up going to Liverpool.
And he ends up going to Liverpool.
But Everton's a kind of Jamaican name, isn't it?
He's saying that's a family name, isn't it?
Well, they come over in the Windrush generation, and his mum was just amazing. I went down to interview him once. I thought he came up a couple of times to Glasgow. In fact, one of the times I picked him up for his hotel. He was going back. He was over for a function, and I thought we'll do the first interview at the airport. We'll go an hour early, and we'll go into that wee estate. So the place was chock-a-block. The only one parking space was round the roundabout. It was full of cars, so we're sitting there, right, and with me and him are sitting, and we must have been interviewing him for about an hour, and I've got a wee dictaphone. Next minute, I didn't notice that we were the only car there and we're parked at a roundabout anymore, and the police car comes up, puts the window down. What are you two up to there? In the car in this quiet industrial estate on a Sunday. And I says, writing a book. And he went, ha ha ha, I've heard them on now. Tease pal. He went, if he's going to get up to that nasty business, go somewhere else. I says, we're writing a book about Mark Waters, and he was like that. Okay, have a nice day, son. He drove away, and I'm like, Mark and I just looked at each other and laughed, you know. But and then the next time I went down to Birmingham because I spoke to a guy called Michael Calvin. He's a great author, and he did Joey Barton's book.
Yeah.
And he said I spoke to him at a dinner, and he said to me, what I try and do is take my subject to a place that will bring out memories, good or bad. He said I interviewed him in the jail for part of it. The jail he was in, they let me take him into jail. I took him to, the side of the sea, next to the sea where he was contemplating in his life and all that stuff.
Memories,
so it was bringing all his memories up. So I said to Mark, let's start off by going into Villa Park. You know, that's where you spent all your formative years. And his house was just round the corner for it. So I says to him, I want to speak to your mum, is that okay? And he says, aye. He says, just go in there and I'll tell her you're coming. So I went in and she made me breakfast and his brother was in and we had a great chat. And she says to me, here you go, son, take that. That says, take that. And I'm like, it's okay, fine. She went, I used to get really upset. She went, we were all sitting for dinner one night. She went and the football phone came in and they were like, aye, that Mark Waters wasn't very good. The next minute, I just went upstairs and phoned in the football phone and the Mark and his brother are eating their dinner and it's, hello, you're out of order by the way what you're saying about my boy Mark. And Mark's like that downstairs, you can hear her talking. So that was a great, and he's a lovely guy.
And of course, to finish the book off, you took him to Loyal Duke Street, East End of Glasgow. We were in the Bristol bar for a party night as well as a book signing.
That was a great night, Si, and you were banging form that night. And I tell you,
that's right. The Gers TV hosted. That's right.
Although I had to save him from himself because when he was going to sing a song, he was going to sing one of the band songs that was a request for something. I had to say to Mark, no. Because you'll just end up with Donald Finlay, you know, and getting into trouble. But
it was a great experience. And I know he loved his time he was in the Loudon at Ibrox when I first met you.
Aye.
And then he was in the Bristol bar, so I know he enjoyed his time with the fans. So that was, as I say to you, I think it's important if you're right and wrong when it should be done. But when you're saying that, a great Ranger story for me is one of the books you've done, the legendary Sam English. Do you want to tell us a wee bit about Sammy?
That was. When I was researching Davy Meeko, John, it took me 2 years to research this book.
Yeah.
And I was in the record at the time. I'd go down to the archives in the lower ground floor, and I'd go in there for 2 hours every morning before I started work. So I was in there at 7 every morning, and I poured through all it. I've got every single daily record in Sunday Mail, and I would go through all the archives. And Sam English's name kept popping up when we got to his big season. And I started taking wee notes, and then it was this, and it was Sam English scores 5 goals in his debut for Rangers after joining from the juniors, and Sam English scored 200 goals in 3 seasons in the junior, and I'm like, the juniors was a really good standard at that time. He played for Yoka.
And it'd have been hard as, I'm not swear, but it'd been hard as.
Absolutely. Well, it turned out it was nearly 300 goals in 3 seasons.
Right, aye.
Right, so he was bagging 100 a year at that level. I mean, to go right from... So anyway, sorry. So that was fine. So I took notes. And after I finished the Davy Meeko John book, I thought I'd revisit all my notes and the Sam English stuff. So then I started researching his, and that took me again about 18 months. And I went over to Northern Ireland to where he was born. To the
just outside Coleraine.
That's right. Aye. Well, we ended up staying the night I think we stayed the night in Coleraine, and we went over there and we checked out his house. And one of the guys that it's set back off the. It's just a wee tiny road side. It's in the middle of a hamlet.
I think it's called Agadoo.
Agadoo, that's right, in Tivoli. And the guy that owns the houses in front of it now, he owns the bit at the back, and he was coming out, and I told him what I was doing, and he took me in and showed me, and it was just wonderful to see that. And
so for anybody that doesn't really know the story, Sam English was born just outside Coleraine in Northern Ireland.
That's right.
But he basically lived most of his young life in Glasgow.
Yes, he was. I think he was born in August 1908, and he was 10 months when he left. His family, actually, it's funny how fate intervenes in things. His dad, there was a big family, and his dad had decided he was going to go back to America. His dad was American, and he was going to go back to America because he couldn't make it working. The land, there was a bad harvest and stuff, so he was going to go back, and he'd virtually sold his leasehold in the farm that he had in Agadoo. And they were going to head back to America, but Sam was born. Their kids were all born in Northern Ireland, and it fell through. Right. So he thought, what are we going to do? He's speaking to somebody, and they said, "Look, I'll get a job in the shipyards in Dalmuir,
which was massive in the days.
Which was unbelievable. That was huge. And I mean, your Clyde Banks and Dalmuir's virtually every day working shipyards. So
and for the younger viewers, sorry, they were building the biggest ships in the world and the most important ships.
Huge. I mean, their Queen Marys and stuff like that were coming off the lines there. So the family they sold up. They sold up in Northern Ireland and they came across. And Sam was the second youngest, and he was 10 months, I think. It was 10 or 11 months when he came over, and they settled in Dalmuir.
Right, yeah, just outside Clydebank.
Just outside Clydebank. So they settled there, and he went to school, Dalmuir Primary School, and then he went to, I don't know if in those days, you know, in the 1920s, whether there was a real depression on, but I don't know if they stayed at the same school all the way through. I can't remember.
That's just after the First World War then.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So he would. I mean, it was
dark times then. Right?
It was. I mean, he lived in. They lived in Dalmuir during the First World War. Yeah. Because he'd come over about 1909, I think it was. So he was obviously more or less a Glasgow boy, you know. Aye. And the family did okay, the odd jobs and that.
So the reason I was saying is a lot of people might think he'd have an Ulster accent, he would have a Glasgow accent.
Yeah, because that's right, because when he signs for Liverpool later on in a record transfer, £8,000 fee, the guys on the Liverpool team, when he walks into the dressing room and says, "How you doing, lads?" They're all like that. That's not a Northern Irish accent. So he starts playing for the school team and a local juvenile team, and he's not doing as well as his brother, you know, Richard. And he's a couple of years or 2 years older, I think, so that's fine. But he's always with his brother, so he gets a chance and he gets a chance and he gets a chance. Signs for Dundalk, Hibs and Ilco Patrick, but it's only when he goes to Yoker that he's really starts banging them in, and he scores nearly 300 goals in 3 seasons, which is just phenomenal. Because at that time they played Petershill, who have always been one of the top teams. Yoker beat them 15-1 and he scored 7. Right, and he laid on another few of the goals. So he was a centre forward, and in those days a centre forward was a poacher. But Sam was one of the first to start coming back and linking up play, so he was a bit of a pioneer as well as just a goal scorer. Yeah. Which adds to the glamour of his play, because he isn't just bang. I mean, it's the hardest thing to do in a football part, but he's also, and it was I think it was Bill Struth that got on him a few times and said, "Stay in the box." Yeah. But he's coming back to do his bits and pieces.
So what inspired you to do a book about Sam?
Do you know it was the stats? I thought, how can somebody playing at the junior level in those days? Yoker were getting 10,000 11,000 a game. It was a phenomenal level. It was how somebody could score that many goals, and every time I went to the library to research it, whether that was a Mitchell or Yoker library or Clydebank, he was just banging in goals for fun. Aye. And I thought, I need to know more about this guy. And you know, obviously he's Yoker for a few years. Arsenal want him. The great Herbert Chapman, manager,
who was Bill Struth's friend.
He comes up. He's just had an operation in his knee, and he's in a bad way. He's still, you know, gets up to Glasgow, and he's in a hotel in St Neots Square, which Rangers used all the time, and he's desperate to sign this boy. So he sends a message out. They're playing on a Tuesday night or something. That's going to be his last game of the season. Come and see me in the hotel, right? But little did anybody else know that Bill Struth's secretary, has been under Bill Struth's orders. An envelope with a couple of £2 every week has been getting handed into the shipyards for Sam English from Rangers, right? They know this boy's good.
They'll just
Bill Struth switched on. He's not ready yet, but I tell you, for a full season, he's getting an envelope every week. So that's supplementing his money. Aye. He's making money with his goals as well. So, as Bill Struth says, sends a message, come and see me at Ibrox after the game on Tuesday night. Okay. But he's got to go and see Herbert Chapman. Now, this was
sorry, just as well, for anybody watching, Herbert Chapman at this point is a massive figure in English football.
Arsenal were the biggest,
world football.
Biggest team in the world, probably. Yeah. Arsenal Rangers were the two biggest teams in the world.
And there was a massive connection with the two clubs.
Two clubs as well, very good friends, played golf for that, and you know, and they would, you know, they would see each other regularly.
They play each other every season.
That's right. They played each other. They had a great connection. It was the whole Rangers shares. And the Arsenal shares with Rangers, which
we'll talk about another time.
It's awful. So Sam English has got a dilemma. Now, just to add a bit of excitement into the mix, the Scottish junior football has been at loggerheads. There's a breakaway faction called the Intermediate Juniors has happened, and it's for 3 years now. Right. The time that Sam English has been playing with Yoker. So Rangers couldn't sign him, right? Nobody could sign him. the senior teams couldn't sign players for the juniors, and there was a Scottish Junior League, but it wasn't as strong as intermediates.
Would this be the reason? Sorry, but would this be the reason he was giving him the money early then? Because Bill Swift knew I can't officially give him the money, but I can give him a couple of quid.
And nobody can sign him now. So once he played, the dispute came to a head the day of the last game he played for Yoker.
Right.
And then it was all systems go. Scouts were out flooding all the junior games.
Of course, aye.
Right. So Sam English it's a kind of well-known thing that Sam English is being courted by Rangers and that he's going to be going to Rangers. But being the gentleman he is, he gets his dad to drive him into city centre, and he goes and speaks to Herbert Chapman. Herbert Chapman says, "I'll give you this, I'll give you that, I'll give you this." It just, he wants this guy because he's going to be a sensation. And Sam English says, as much as great as that sounds, he says, "I'm sorry, sir, but," he says, "my heart's set on Rangers." Right, my heart is set on Rangers, and he was like, fair play, wishes him all the best. He then goes to Ibrox. There's one light on in Ibrox. Bearing in mind it's about 10, 11 o'clock at night, and the cab drives up, and his dad, whoever's taking him, and he gets out the car and he goes into Ibrox, and Phil Struth says, "Right, here's the terms," and Sam English says, "Just tell me where I sign."
He's already agreed.
No mention of what wage he was getting or whatever. And then he signs for Rangers. He goes home and tells his family, "I'm a Rangers player," and the biggest club in Scotland, biggest club in Britain, arguably, along with Arsenal, and starts off with scoring 5 goals in his first game for Rangers. I mean, he's literally just, the junior season always
he's not a break.
Fell right through. So I think he'd a week in Girvan. That was his place. He used to always go to Girvan.
Aye.
And then him and his family, and then he starts for Rangers. They always played every year. The 2 teams, the first team v the second team, and the public could pay in, and we went to charity. It was a sort of trial match, and he was in the team right for the start, and he just 44 league goals that season, and nobody's getting anywhere near it since. Now that was 1931, so 44 league goals. Now how many years have we're coming up in 100 years soon,
still got it.
and nobody's, not even the great Ali McCoy's too, was a phenomenal goal scorer. So and I think Marco Negri might have got it. Possibly, I genuinely think Negri would have got it.
I mean, that's a story what if really, but you're right if he did in the whole season. But it's a remarkable story, and the book's still available. The 2 books that you were talking about, the Miko John.
This one you can't get anywhere, unfortunately. It's out of print, and it's not going to be printed again. So
right,
you go on eBay for a few quid.
Can you get the other one?
I think the Sam English one's still available. I think I've got a few in the house, but I'm not so sure.
If anybody's want a copy of that, just send you an email then.
Email, that's right. You can send me an email to jeff.holmes4@btinternet.com, which
we'll put on the page later on.
Up. So the Sam English book for me was fantastic. And I interviewed there was a Sam English Rose Bowl side that you'll know.
Yeah, I was part of the committee.
A lot about.
Yeah, to get that made.
One of the most stunning pieces of silverware I've ever seen. Yeah. It was a girl, Cara Murphy, from
the same village.
Is that right? That's right.
The same county, same area.
And interviewed her for the book. Interviewed Andy Little because he was one of the winners of it, and obviously a lot of similarities in their position.
Right, in their career.
And also Andy Little becoming got a really bad injury, wasn't it? A fractured skull, and obviously Sam English with John Thompson in that accident. But one of the things it just finished the book perfectly for me was, I remember going down to Yoker one day before I finished writing the book, obviously, and I went in and I spoke to one of the committee men, the secretary Campbell, and I said to him, "Do you guys keep any records for Sam? I'm writing a book, I'm really finished, but if you guys kept any records, I'm missing." I like to, if I'm going to say Sam English scored 300 goals in 3 seasons, I want to be able to back that up.
To prove it, aye.
Right? So he said, "I'm sorry, Jeff," he said, "there was a fire in the clubhouse many years ago and all the records were destroyed." And I was like, "Oh, that's a pity." So we're talking away and he says, "See that boy there?" He says, the boy, they were limbering up for the start of the game. He went, "That boy's shooting in." He went, "That's his great-grandson."
Right, aye.
And I says, "Really?" He went,
He'd have been related to Lloyd then, Lloyd?
That's right, he was Lloyd Gailey.
Lloyd Gailey, aye.
So the boy Gregor Cree was...
That's right.
There was a great-grandson. So...
They came in at the dinner that we had, that's how I know them. The Cree family came along.
Lovely guys. And that day, Gregor was centre forward and he scored an absolute peachy goal, which was, and this is true, was almost a carbon copy, a goal that his great-grandfather had scored 80 years exactly to the day when they thrashed Petershill.
Be that fate.
And I was like, oh my God. So I spoke to Gregor up in the up in the director's room after the game, and then he introduced me to his family, and then they gave me a lot of photographs of Sam as a boy. And
that finishes the book for you nicely.
Finishes the book nicely.
Fantastic. So I'm going to, before I speak about your final book that you're just bringing out, was there any other books that you would like to quickly speak about?
Very quickly, one of the ones I'm nearly finished is, you could call it Invincibles, but somebody's beat us to that, even though I don't think they were 100% invincible. The Rangers team of season 1898-99 that won every single league match. Undefeated. Every 18 games, 18 wins, including
played 18, won 18.
10-0 against Hibs, and that one's nearly finished. So it's going to include the whole season, which was one of the most momentous seasons in Rangers history, because that was when we that was when we moved to the current Ibrox Stadium, and also when we became a public limited company. So there was a lot of really important stuff. Plus, it will include a biography of all the players that played.
When will that come out? That book?
That'll be next year sometime, because I need to finish the one I'm working on at the moment.
Yeah.
And this is one that will maybe split opinion a wee bit. It's on Alfie Con.
I'm just thinking of the song, but I'm not going to sing it.
Well, you better know, because I'm going to try and call it what's it all about, right? But
I know.
I've been working with Alfie for the last 3 or 4 months, and we've had a few really good interview sessions, and he's a lovely guy.
He's a great player.
Oh, cracking player, cracking. You know what was good about him? He was a silky, skillful player that could get in for a tackle. You know, he'd nae. But he's been doing it. Alfie sadly lost his wife recently, so we're going to do it for charity. You're
going to donate some of the book towards it?
Aye, definitely. So
fantastic.
That should be a good read. I know it'll split opinion a wee bit, but that's okay, because if
I'll create debate.
People don't want to buy it, then that's fine. It's up to everybody anyway, isn't it? So I think that'll be out. That'll be out for the summer.
Good.
And that'll include his time at Rangers, his time at Tottenham, Hearts, Motherwell. Is there anybody else he played for? No, I can't remember.
Maybe a junior team, I don't know.
Junior team, maybe. Preston Pans or something, you know. Played rugby for Preston Pans, so I think that covers his whole career.
It'll be an interesting book, as you said it, but I'll create a conversation and chat, and that's the main thing about it.
That's what it's about, isn't it?
Aye, I mean, whether people agree with what you've done or disagree, I think you've done the right thing, but I wasn't really going. I was only a young boy before many days.
So I mean, I'm interested in stories. I'm interested in people's stories. I'm not just interested in what games they played in and how many they scored in that game. Was it wet? Was it windy? I want to know the stories. I want to know. He was a massive Rangers fan, Alfie Con. Massive. We used to get the supporters bus through for Preston Pans on a Saturday, and the great Jimmy Miller, who I see you got a lovely photograph up there.
And Brand as well.
And Jimmy Miller took him through to Ibrox, and that was one of the reasons he got started there. But he was a Rangers fan. He was no doubt about it. He was a genuine Rangers fan. His dog was called Blue, you know. So it was. But I won't give too much away.
Aye, we'll tell the story another time. And the big thing is, even if somebody's not happy with the book or something like that, the money's got to charity, which is a lot of respect for you doing that.
Win-win, isn't it?
Aye, because a lot of people, not a lot of people, but there'll be an element of people in life who'll say, he's making a fortune out of Rangers books and stuff like that. I don't really think there's a lot of money in it, but I'm not going to go into that anyway. That's your personal life. But the last book is the one we're here to talk about. We'll do a wee 10 minutes on it. It's a historical book. It's cartoons. It's a kind of comic strip, but I don't really know how to describe it, Si, but I would say it's a comic strip book, and the book's called All About the Rangers, and it's based on, it's myself and Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller does the Rangers archives. Yeah.
So he's Stephen's great. He's always working, getting stuff. So he lives down south.
He stays in
Leeds, and he was at the archives, which is quite near his home, and he was going through the Daily Express, Scottish Daily Express for 1960, and he came in August, which we were both born actually. He came across this comic strip, and it said the Rangers, the Glasgow Rangers story, I think it was called, and he was looking at it and he went, oh, quite interesting, and it was from the Rangers Foundation in 1873.
Aye.
Which we know is not true, but there you go. But that's what it starts from.
But in the days, up to what, 10 years ago now, everybody would have been convinced.
I was researching something about 2 weeks ago, and I came across an article from 1910, and it states quite clearly that Rangers were founded in 1872. Aye, absolutely. I'll need to send you. And so, but the narrative was then, it was a kind of little known fact, so the narrative was it was 1873. So this strip starts in 1873, and it tells you about 1873, and then it jumps to 1960 in the same strip, because bearing in mind it only goes up to 1960 because that's when it was produced. So then it starts telling the story about them not having a ball, but the older brother's got a ball, but they don't. He says, "I'll give you the ball if you let me play." They're like, "But you're too old."
Well, I'm not playing. Well, you're not playing then.
Well, you're not playing.
Aye.
Well, what are we going to do here, you know?
No ball, no game.
And then they go back and they say, actually, he's not a bad player, you know. So it runs right through to 1960, and it tells you all the most important moments of time. It talks about the Ibrox disaster, 1902.
So who done the cartoon side of it?
It's a guy from down south that was commissioned by the Daily Express. So we had to go to the Daily Express and get permission.
Right.
Now the guy, there was a content editor called Douglas Dickey, who's based in Glasgow, who I know, and Douglas right away, great. I says, look, Douglas, charity. For charity, so he says no problem at all.
So what charity is this one?
So it's going to be split evenly between the Glasgow, the Rangers Charity Foundation, and Alzheimer's Scotland. So which is something that affects obviously a lot of people.
Yeah.
So we got to go ahead by the Express. I then got onto a book designer that I know that's done a few of my books, and it's going to be a sort of that shape landscape. And it's about 100 pages, and there's a lot of words in it as well. At the start and then at the back, just a bit about the history of the club and about Stephen and I and different things and where we've been and where we're going. And then it's all the comic strips, and they're brilliant. There's 2 a page, and there's 140 strips altogether, which takes the story up to 1960. And quite interestingly, Stephen and I, he came up to Glasgow a few weeks ago, and we sat and had a coffee, and he said, I wonder if it would be feasible to bring the story up to date. So it might be that we look at commissioning a cartoonist
to
bring the story up to date.
It's funny because a different thing altogether, but we're interviewing a guy named Stevie Wilson that does
Stevie's great, isn't he?
The Three Bears.
Stevie's great.
But that kind of thing you're talking about, getting somebody that can do a cartoon.
So I mean, it's a kind of. I'm always loath to say cartoon because it's a kind of serious thing.
It's like illustration.
It's illustrations, but I just thought a comic strip kind of. People will know what it is then,
I found it interesting as well. Obviously I don't know a lot about the book because it's not came out yet, and I've only spoke to you about promoting it. The front cover of the book is the story of the Davy Meiklejohn
1928 cup final, Scottish Cup final.
Which I would consider that penalty to kick to be the most important goal in Rangers history, for the reason that the 25-year hoodoo.
That's right, we hadn't won the cup for 25 years.
For the biggest, at this point, the biggest tournament. It was bigger than the league itself, and Rangers really need to win the game. It's nothing each, and the Meek goes up and takes the penalty kick. Rangers going to win 4-1.
That's right, 4-0.
4-0, was it?
No, did they score? Did they score?
I might be wrong, I don't know.
I missed that game. So it was 1928,
I'm not sure. I thought it was 4-1, but maybe 4-0.
It might have been honestly. We won anyway.
I've seen arguments before that Rangers' most important goal. That's something I would say is right up there with it. And it's good to see that. When I seen that at the front, I thought I want to get involved with promoting that book. When I seen it right away, it's
Davy Meiklejohn spoke about it. I mean, in those days, in the 20s and 30s, players were never interviewed. Right? Players were very seldom interviewed. Maybe if a journalist bumped into somebody, there was no press conferences after the match or whatever. If somebody wanted, right up to Scott Simon, if somebody wanted team news, they phoned Scott Simon at the office. There was no organised press conferences or anything. But Davy Meiklejohn that night after the game talks extensively about how, as you said, how important it was.
I think the quote, see on the play. The play Follow. Was it called Follow? The one they done about 15 years ago.
That's right.
And they did a quote from him. Was that the quote you were meaning?
I think so.
And he speaks about, because for the younger people that are watching it, if you remember the Nacho Novo penalty in Florence, that's the kind of pressure he was under. Very much so. It was 0-0 at the time. Yeah. And he said he was quoted as saying, if it was apparently Bob McPhail that was a penalty taker. Yeah. And Bob McPhail didn't want to take it because of the pressure. That tells you the pressure. Bob McPhail was a record goal scorer. One of the greatest ever Rangers goal scorers of all time, in the top 5 now, I think. Yeah. Him and Jimmy Smith, McCoy, etc. And he didn't want to take it. And Meiklejohn was captain, so he stepped up. He says, I'm the captain, I'll take responsibility. Puts the ball down. As he's taking 4 or 5 steps back, he's thinking to himself, if I miss this hoodoo could go in for another 25 years. Because there were apparently an old music at the theatre, music hall, and it was a standing joke. They used to make the joke every week. I can't remember the guy's name, the comedian. That's right, and he had to change his act that night. That's in one of the Rangers books. And the players were all there. I can't remember what was the name of the book it was in. It might have been in this actually. It might have been. I don't know if you've read that. There's a book in for the 60s. There's not a team like the Glasgow Rangers, is it? and they mention the story at the very beginning of it.
That's
the
right.
comedian every week done the same joke for years, because it wasn't just they couldn't win the Scottish Cup. They were getting to the finals.
That's
They were,
right.
they
couldn't
were
go over the
unlucky.
line.
They just
I know, they
couldn't.
couldn't go over the line. And it was a music hall joke, you know.
On
We'll put a man in the moon before Rangers
Aye.
win the Scottish Cup and all that.
And then when the night of Rangers winning it, the other players made a point of going because he's got to change his act.
And he was like, keep doing, you know, and he had
If
to.
anybody's watching this tonight, let us know if you know who that comedian was.
Aye, because we're not happy with him.
Aye.
But so that was it. Was probably
Big
it is,
pressure.
you know, everybody will have their own thoughts, and people will say, oh, such independently that the goal that won is the Willie Johnson's second goal in Barcelona wins the cup, and
Good point, aye.
that Tam Forsai's goal won the 73, and Rangers' first trophy after the Derek Johnson, you know, during the 9-0 for Celtic. That's a lot. But that's. And I tell you, for it being so 1928, so I mean, for it being so long ago, it's fair hyped up, you know. So there must have been something to it.
100%. So to wrap up the interview, the book's going to be available for Christmas.
Definitely, I should have them on Friday. Now it's a limited edition of 600. We've already sold 450, I think. So they are kind of running out, but it's. I think it's going to be something different, Si.
100%,
you know,
aye.
always try and do something a wee bit different. I know there's a lot of books out just now, but this is $7.99. To me, it's a stocking filler. You know, for a lot of people are buying it. One boy bought 10. He's going to give it to all his family. You know, so there's a lot. It's affordable. I think it's affordable.
Yeah.
$7.99 plus £2 postage, and they should be getting posted out this weekend.
And there's a possibility of that carrying on to the new era with the animation.
Well, after the new year, Steve and I are going to look at it. What we might have to do is take subscriptions for it, because it will probably cost a lot of money to get a cartoonist to do another 140 comic strips. But it might be that we don't make as much for charity. But if we can complete the story, then
finish a book.
You know,
Finish the second part.
leave it 2012, and
Aye.
we're good to go.
Sounds great. So if you want to get a copy of that book, there's just over 200 left.
There's just over
to
150 left or something.
150 left to order.
Aye.
So there's less than 200 to order. If you drop us a message on the channel, or Jeff's going to put his email address up again, you'll be able to get a copy of it. I'm pretty sure if you meet him in Glasgow, he'll sign it as well.
Absolutely. The Twitter's at JeffH1960, capital J, small EFF, capital H 1960. That's my Twitter.
Fantastic. It's been a pleasure to have you on the show tonight.
You want to try this on before we go?
Ask if I can get a wee shot of Davy Meikle
Here we go.
John's cap.
Now tell me, would there have been pressure you taking that penalty in 1928?
When I played with the BB team, I took a few of the penalties.
Did you?
No, I was a left back. It's a pleasure to have this on the show tonight. This bit of Scottish football history, Rangers history, 1928-29. There wasn't many of these. There's no many of these about now. How did you get this?
A guy got in touch with me and said, "You wrote a book about Davy Meikle, John. I was looking for some information on Davy." He says I think it was his granddaughter lived next door to him,
Aye.
and they gave it to his dad as a wee present.
Incredible.
So he wanted somebody that appreciated Davy Meikle, John, to have it. So.
And the funny part of this story is, people think Jeff's given me this just now for the video and to tell the story. The real reason is